This video will discuss Standard 8F2 in 8th grade Georgia Standards of Excellence for Mathematics. MGSE8F2 compare properties of two functions, each represented in a different way, algebraically, graphically, numerically in tables, or by verbal descriptions. For example, given a linear function represented by a table of values and a linear function represented by an algebraic expression, determine which function has the greater rate of change. This standard gives students the opportunity to connect and explain connections among different representations, including the meaning of rate of change, unit rate, slope, y-intercept, and initial value as it relates to the situation, and how each of these features are determined given any representation of the situation. In elementary school, algebraic thinking is developed by analyzing patterns and relationships. In 5th grade, these relationships are displayed in an input-output table, or function table. The ordered pairs are then graphed in the coordinate plane. In middle school, 6th grade students are first introduced to ratio relationships and unit rate. They represent these relationships in tables, equations, and on the coordinate plane. In 7th grade, students extend their understanding of unit rate, including ratios of fractions, and determine unit rate from equations, graphs, tables, and verbal descriptions of proportional relationships. Additionally, students are able to explain what an ordered pair means in terms of the situation. In 8th grade, unit rate on a graph is defined as slope, and students represent both proportional relationships and linear functions with the y-intercept not equal to 0. In high school, function understanding is expanded beyond linear to both quadratic and exponential functions. Students construct and compare these functions by deciding which function best models a situation and comparing key features of the function, such as end behavior, maximum, minimums, rate of change, and intercepts. In 8th grade, students begin working with functions in Unit 4 and continue their study through Unit 7. Tasks that address 8F2 are embedded in the Georgia frameworks throughout these units. Purposely sequencing related tasks rather than individual tasks is essential to fully develop student understanding of comparing functions. 8F2 builds on Standard 8EE5. Graph proportional relationships, interpreting the unit rate as the slope of the graph. Compare two different proportional relationships represented in different ways. This standard and tasks that address this standard, like What's My Line, are great entry points to promoting student proficiency for 8F2, comparing two functions. In this task, students compare the hourly wage, or unit rate, of three different occupations represented in a graph, table, and equation.
We know how much the machinist makes in an hour because every hour just so happens to go up by the same amount.
Do you see the unit rate in that table?
It's gonna be 1850 over 1, which is just 1850 because we did the slope, which y over x.
How did y'all find the plumber's unit rate or hourly wage?
Well, the plumber's information, it came with the unit rate in the data that it gave us in the question.
Where does it say it?
It gave us the wage, which is
The wage,
20.
which is $20 per hour.
Peaches and Plums from the free online resource Illustrative Mathematics ask students to reason about slope of a direct proportional relationship in the context of cost per pound by analyzing a graph without a scale. Listen to how these students use different approaches to make sense of the slope of these lines.
Oh, and that the peaches cost more than the plums overall in the y and x-axis.
Do the peaches always cost more than the plums?
Yes.
Yes.
How do you know?
The
The
line,
line is steeper.
well, the lines will never intersect
How do you know that?
because it's a way steeper line. So as the x increase, or the x and y increases like more than the plums. So like if this was 1 pound, wait, what is x again? Okay, if this is a pound and then this is $1, like it's gonna be half $1 instead of $1. That makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
If it's right here, if we're gonna do 2 pounds, we're gonna go up. It's gonna be $2 for 2 pounds of plums, because that's where it intercepts on the line. And then if we go here and we want 2 pounds, we have to go all the way up to here where it intercepts, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be $4 for 2 pounds of peaches, which is $2 more for the same exact thing.
Additional tasks that address 8F2 are found at Open Up Resources. The free Open Educational Resource, OER, curriculum was developed by Illustrative Mathematics. In comparing two different representations, one situation asked students to compare earnings represented in a table and as a verbal description. Students were asked to create a poster representing this situation. This is a great opportunity to ask students to make connections among different representations that highlight, connect, and contrast each form.
It shows how much money they make per an amount of envelopes. Like for Claire, she makes double the amount at 100 than Hans does at 100.
Representations. They have the table, the graph, and the equation. Which one is it easiest to see who makes more?
The table, obviously. Or the graph. The graph could also.
I noticed was the graph.
The graph or the table.
I like the table.
Both are equal.
Yeah. My thing is the table, because I like doing the table, because it's really easy to me.
But like if the colors were correct, definitely the graph.
Yeah.
And which one lets you see how much someone makes at how much money they make at 1,500 envelopes? Which one would you prefer?
Well, I think I would prefer
the
Claire.
table.
The table, yeah.
The table would show it easier than finding it on a graph.
But then again, the
It's
graph.
really hard to coordinate.
But then again, the graph, you can clearly see there's a large separation there.
Mm-hmm.
One's definitely higher than the other.
This alike and different tasks from Open Up Resources help students look for and make use of the structure of different representations. Listen as students discuss the varied representations and the linear function ideas they represent in different ways.
Number 1, it gives you y equals 2x, and the y-intercept for that would be 0. Number 2, it's a graph. So your y-intercept is going to be right here, because this is where it crosses the y-axis, which is your vertical line, and it's on 0, 0, so your y-intercept for this is also going to be 0. And then if you go to find your y-intercept on this one, it's a table, you go up here and you find 0, and then you look down and it's 0 again.
Are all three the same function?
No, 3 is a -2 instead of a +2.
How could you tell that? What is -2?
The
Slope, so it goes down where it goes.
Goes down over.
So how would that graph of the table look different than the...
Well, it would
it'd
go like this.
down to
So which representation allows you to see a y-intercept?
The graph,
graph.
because it literally shows you exactly where it is.
Okay. Which form of the linear relationship helps you see a unit rate or slope?
Probably the equation, because it just
because
shows
it already
you.
has the 2x.
Yeah.
You may already be aware of the free graphing calculator Desmos. In addition, Desmos has launched within the last few years Desmos Classroom Activities. This free web-based program has digital math activities created by the Desmos team and the math community. They are engaging and help develop a love of math with both immediate feedback for the teacher and the student. The Desmos activity Marble Slides gamifies graphing lines as it helps students explore connections between the graphs and equations of lines. This activity is accessible with challenges that grow one layer at a time, and extendable. As students build their skills, the supports are pulled back. The Desmos activity Linear Functions Tables is an 8th grade appropriate entry-level Marble Slides activity to begin making these connections. This activity builds conceptual understanding while encouraging iteration. Students continue trying and adjusting based on feedback until successful.
So change the equation.
-x. Right?
Let's see.
Ooh.
That's -4. -4. There.
There we go.
The Desmos activity card sort linear functions incorporates a research-based strategy of classifying based on similarities and differences, enhancing students' understanding of linear functions and the ability to use the knowledge to compare functions represented in different forms.
3 would be like right here, and it would be straight because there's no y to it. Well, there's no x to it.
Well, she could have seen the fact that they both have 3
I see their
as the
thoughts about it
y-intercept.
because the y-intercept is 3.
After a purposeful sequence of tasks, students are asked to compare two linear functions represented in different ways in the Open Up Resources task, which is growing faster. In this task, they are presented with an algebraic and graphical representation of two scenarios and asked to compare the initial value, or y-intercept, and the rate of change. The sequence of tasks in this video is just one example of how you may choose to create a learning progression that builds students' understanding of linear functions. When choosing appropriate tasks, consider how you will create opportunities for students to engage in mathematical discussions while creating connections between different representations of linear functions.
And he started with $60 in his account. So every week he adds $5 to his account, and every week Elena adds $8 to her account.
Because, alright, so we got that because right here it has 2 weeks and it has between 60 and 80, which is a $20 difference. So this is $10 right here. But this is 2 weeks. So what I did is I thought that he was making $10 an hour, which was incorrect because I didn't take into consideration that it was 2 weeks. I thought, hey, this is 10 right here, so he's making 10 per week. And I didn't look at this too, which gave me that, $10 instead of 5, because it's really 1 week is right here, and that's 5, and that's 10, and then so on with his line.
Additional resources and tasks may be found at GeorgiaStandards.Org.